doing a little bit of high intensity training. There's people out there that just love it to death, and, good for you. I hate it. But having a little bit of that per week actually helps boost the mitochondrial levels in your body, which is just part of the aging process. As we slow down, we age, we move less, our mitochondria count starts dropping in our body. And that's what keeps us youthful. And it's also the powerhouse in our cells that utilizes fat and burns fat.
Welcome to the Wits and Weights podcast. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and this twice-a-week podcast is dedicated to helping you achieve physical self-mastery by getting stronger, optimizing your nutrition, and upgrading your body composition. We'll uncover science-backed strategies for movement, metabolism, muscle, and mindset with a skeptical eye on the fitness industry so you can look and feel your absolute best. Let's dive right in. Wits and Weights community, welcome to another episode of the Wits and Weights podcast. Today, I'm joined by Brad Williams, host of the Over 40 Fitness Hacks podcast. I had the honor of being on his show recently, and I asked him to come on here to talk about the unique challenges and approaches for the over 40 demographic. We'll discuss Brad's motivations behind focusing on this age group, how fitness principles can be adapted to our age, and we're going to, of course, debunk common age-related fitness myths. Brad will share his insights on effective training styles, managing stress and inflammation, and optimizing nutrition. And of course, you're going to learn practical strategies for maintaining a strong, healthy lifestyle beyond 40. Over the last decade, Brad owned and operated 3 gym locations in Orange County and oversaw more than 40 independent personal trainers, each with their unique training styles. He built a loyal following and sought after client trainer community culture within each of his gym locations. Post-pandemic, Brad had to focus more on online training and started his fitness podcast called Over 40 Fitness Hacks. He wanted the show to revolve around his passion for helping the over 40 crowd fight the aging process while still having a social life. Brad, psyched to see you again and have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much, Philip, for having me on your show. This is great.
Yeah, so it's so much fun, man. The over 40 thing is so hot right now. One of the most common questions I get all the time is, what to do for this thing over 40, whatever it is, training, nutrition, you name it, as if it's some magic arbitrary number. And, I kind of want to pick your brain on that. Why the over 40 crowd? Let's just start there.
Yeah. So, just as a frame of reference in your intro, I've been a personal trainer for 15 years, owned and operated gyms in Orange County. And I think just kind of those were the over 40 crowd was kind of who could afford, private personal trainers or semi-private personal trainers, which is what I did. I trained a few people, still kind of catered the workout to each one of them, but, allowed them to share the cost. And just got really good at it. And would always notice the over 40 crowd, talking about their aches and pains and how much harder it was than in their 20s and 30s. And, I'd always give them some props for that. I get it. But, we can still work hard. We can still get there and kind of grind. Let's get that motivation as being the personal trainer. And then, fast forward 15 years, doing everything I've been doing and finally turning 40 myself. And now I'm seeing the problems. It's harder to keep the weight off. I'm tired. You got life, work life, family balance. And I'm like, oh my God, all these clients were right. It is harder. But, I've got that personal trainer mindset where I refuse to quit. I will literally find the best ways, the quickest ways, and safest ways to still get that healthy body, that athletically and aesthetically pleasing body, but also, I've also kind of changed my mindset to more longevity as well over the last few years. So that's kind of where I am now. And I just, love helping people, being in our 20s and 30s, that was great. But, we had age to help us out on that. Mm-hmm. And now we have to worry, about a lot more stuff than just how many days we can get to the gym. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah, that's a solid answer. So first of all, thank you for your honesty on saying like it was the people who could afford it, like initially, because I totally understand when I was getting into marketing, I'm like, well, I'm probably not marketing to 21-year-olds, high ticket coaching or whatever. So that's funny. But then you said that, you yourself hadn't quite experienced that yet, being in your 20s or 30s at the time. And then you kind of aged into that. And now you can really empathize with your clients, which is also a good point because those listening, we have a lot in that demographic. Don't hire a 20-year-old coach. Come on. Hire the guys that have been through it or are grizzled, got the little bit of the gray hairs. We understand.
Exactly.
we understand, right? And then the idea of refusing to quit and like continuing to push appeals to me, and I can relate to wanting to get younger the older you are. Like now that you're in your 40s, it's like forget father time. Like we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna keep going and making progress. But then the idea of people not having age anymore to help them is another good quote you said, because folks are listening and like, yeah, I know what you mean. Like in my 20s, I could do anything. And now I've got things happening. Like stuff is just happening, whether it's from built up life stress, right? From obligations and their family and stuff like that, or just what happens with your body. So you said you're 42. I'm 43. We're pretty much the same age in the over 40 crowd. Is there something that you experienced in the last 5 years that you attribute to age that you just absolutely couldn't relate to in your 30s? Because you alluded to some of that.
Yeah, so I just picked 40 as the number, but I started noticing playing real competitive flag football with a lot of my buddies and noticing some injuries at 32, 35. Those were the first times I saw ankle rolls and almost some meniscus tears in the knees just from playing a simple sport like that. And I'm like, God, so we train and try to be more functionally fit and do these things, and it's just you're fighting a losing battle. My thing is, if you really love it and it's got to be part of your life, then you make it happen. But for me, I finally decided that, I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to be an NFL athlete. Why am I doing this? There's other things I want to do with my life. So I pretty much just took sports out, minus some pickleball or, whatever. But that's just kind of the thing. And then right around, I think, 37, I had a pretty prominent lower back injury. And, I always have to tell people it has nothing to do, with the gym or any of my workouts. I always got to put that out there.
Yep.
But it was, I was the gym owner. I was running 3 gyms. I was the accountant, the bathroom cleaner, the marketing guy, the front desk guy, everything, right? Until I can get these gyms going. And part of it was moving equipment around to keep it fresh and everything. So one day I was just moving out of one of my gyms, a couple pieces of equipment, and, walked in. It was more of a warehouse style gym. And we use these little eye bolts that were anchored into the ground, and we hook our battle ropes to it. So they're basically OSHA trip hazards, right? So we usually put orange cones on them when we lift the shed door. Well, I was just in there to grab a couple things. I'm like, I don't need to do that. Literally, as soon as I went in there, talked to someone, grabbed a A-frame weight rack about 45 pounds, turned and totally forgot, went out, tripped on this thing, lunged out so violently, caught myself and stupidly held onto the rack. And immediately I heard the pop. And basically, long story short, I blew out my L5S1. And it was just a nightmare experience. So with that, and over a 5-year period of time of 2 surgeries, tons of chiropractor visits, physical therapy visits, everything, I finally, that's a kind of a shock to humbling you and seeing what's worth it to you on, what you can do now, what's in it for your future, and kind of longevity, stuck with me. Like, how am I supposed to play with my kid later in life? What kind, I want to be able to walk, and, deadlifting 450 pounds is just not my future anymore, even though I was functionally sound and safe doing it with all the, personal training principles that I had. But now it's, I had to adopt more of a philosophy of time under tension. A lot of people have different names for it, doing negatives or slow-mo training. And I just call it time under tension. Taking everything I do, slowing it down, instead of 1 to 2 seconds to finish each rep of whatever exercise you're doing, I take 4 to 5, sometimes longer, and really get that mind-body connection, control, feel the contraction. But it allows you to use about half the weight. So now I've just, given myself that much more time expended on my body as far as joints and, my spine as well. So, and I've been doing great with that. And, we'll talk about other hacks that I've learned that, everything is about quality now, not quantity. And it's not just movement and how many times at the gym you can get. There's now sleep, inflammation, different kinds of stress, all these things that I've incorporated that we probably should have done in our 20s, to tell you the truth. But we just didn't care, didn't listen to our bodies, and we just had so much drive and, that young energy that we just pushed past all those things.
Yeah, I've yet to meet someone in that age group who will listen.
Yeah,
I guess who will just say, oh, you know what? What you're saying is very wise, and I understand it's going to happen to me. So let me be. No, it just never happened. You know, we all learn from the school of hard knocks. And your thing about back surgery. So I had back surgery too. I get it. L5S1, same thing. So many people listening have, they get the tendinopathy or the tendonitis or tendonesis, right? Depending on what you call it.
Mhm.
They have the surgeries, and you get to this fork in the road. You get to these decision points. The older you get, the more you get beat up of, okay, what do I do now? And I like the principle of finding something that allows you to continue to train and not using that as an excuse, but also not being stupid and just saying, well, I can do the exact same thing that I did before. So we'll get into training a little bit because I like the idea of modifying tempo, modifying your lifts. It's all good. Like, I'm not dogmatic about that stuff at all when it's the best thing for you. So stepping back, what are the big rocks, like the principles for over 40? And again, I know 40 is an arbitrary number, but it's a good transition point. Men and women, that's when your testosterone hormones start to decline, perimenopause for women. It's when we all get into mid-career. So all the stress is there. Our kids are like 10 years old, roughly. So what are the principles that do change the approach you have to take, like recovery, joint health, you mentioned, stuff like that? Hey there, it's Philip from Wits and Weights. We are running a special listener survey all this month of February, and I'd love your input. It's quick, easy, and a fantastic way to let us know what you love about the show and what you'd like to hear more of. Plus, as a thank you, everyone who completes the survey gets entered into a raffle for some awesome prizes, including First Form supplement gift cards, 1-hour Zoom hangouts to Ask Me Anything, and 1-year subscriptions to MacroFactor. Just head over to witsandweights.com/survey or click the link in the show notes. This is your chance to shape the future of the Wits and Weights podcast. Again, go to witsandweights.com/survey or click the link in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in. And now back to the show.
Yeah, so that was kind of hard for me to grasp even after the back surgery. Was, to get what I wanted, I would have to put minimum 5 times in the gym, lifting heavy, to get what I want. And what I noticed was after adopting, this other style of slowing everything down, you don't need to go 5 times. Sometimes I only do 2 days a week. Usually I try to get 3. But just how important movement is. It doesn't need to be, heavy lifting. Obviously you can do quite a bit with just 2 to 3 days. And then your other time spent could be walking, riding bike. I like rucking with a little light weight vest, and movement is really what matters. And, I like to preface, during COVID, when a lot of us trainers had to go home, we had the luxury of taking some of our gym equipment home and keep it going, where our clients, had to use whatever they had. And we would still get great workouts for an hour and a half. And then for the rest of the day, we would sit there and do nothing because we weren't even really supposed to go outside, right? Every single one of us gained like 15 pounds. So we did the same workout, got all our protein every day. Yet that was the one problem, was movement. You don't realize like how much we were moving, being trainers, and go, for me, jumping
Right.
from gym to gym to gym and just hustling.
And
And now
you're in
we're
this
not doing
box,
that anymore.
yeah.
And that was the first time I was like, oh my God, movement matters just as much as, lifting to tear down the muscle and rebuild to get that lean muscle mass. And then so going down that rabbit hole, that's why, listening to other experts and just really getting into this over 40 fitness theories of, you got to start looking at all this stuff and slow down, give your body time to repair. You got to worry about sleeping better, supplement stuff only if you can't get it or won't from your diet. There's people that just won't do it. So, okay, we got to supplement it. And then another big one was I really learned the benefit of doing a little bit of high intensity training. There's people out there that just love it to death, and, good for you. I hate it. But having a little bit of that per week actually helps boost the mitochondrial levels in your body, which is just part of the aging process. As we slow down, we age, we move less, our mitochondria count starts dropping in our body. And that's what keeps us youthful. And it's also the powerhouse in our cells that utilizes fat and burns fat. So right there is a flag that's saying that you're not moving as much, you're not doing a lot of this high intensity stuff, you're aging. That's why we're putting on all this fat. I mean, I'm doing the same amount of workouts. I even cut my calories down even more. I'm eating more protein than I ever did. And why am I getting heavier? It's because you're not having that same effect of having all that mitochondria. So that was an addition I had to start adding in. And sure enough, it was real easy to start boosting that. And without any effort, one day a week, started seeing the results start coming in faster. So that's what just kind of threw me down that rabbit hole. And, I've got all these different buckets, one for movement,
Pillars,
one for
buckets,
stress, one, all that stuff. And, you don't have to master it all, but if you dabble in a little bit of each one of them now, being over 40, oh my God, you can do so much damage.
All right, so there's a lot I want to unpack because I love even the last statement you said. Dabble in each one of them is a great way to put it, because it people try to do, maybe they try to do too much, or maybe they think they have to do everything in every category. But like you said, dabbling, maybe what you're getting at is consistency, or having that spread of doing all the basic routines and habits in your life, the healthy routines to some extent. Most people are not doing any, or most people are doing very little. So you're going to be way beyond the next person just by doing some of that.
Sure.
A couple principles I want to tie on, because before we started recording, we talked about how there's things we may quote unquote disagree on or have controversy on, whatever. And we'll probably talk about that at the end and put that in a bonus content for people to listen to. But the idea of doing too much and moderating your volume and frequency. When I hear you talk about the importance of movement, I think of energy flux, right? I think of your expenditure, and like you said, at the cellular level, you're engaging this. But you also mentioned the time under tension principle. And I think there's probably different ways to get to that result, because I had a similar experience in the pandemic where I had been doing CrossFit for years, but at a like crazy level. I stepped back and just started lifting 3 days a week. In a sense, I was reducing volume by doing that. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I could recover and sleep more and build. Although I was lifting very heavy, but not that heavy because it was relative to my strength at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, the principle, though, is the same. When people are listening, it's like, don't do too much. Realize that your recovery demands are higher and your recovery capacity is lower with age. Move, walk, throw on a rucksack, get your sleep. Like, these are all super important, right? So thank you for, I think it was good. Those are the big ones. You can chime in when you want, because sometimes I just ramble. But the opposite of that is the misconceptions or excuses people make that are not true with it. Because I'm sure you see that as well. Like, we just talked about what you do need to be cognizant of. Yeah. What do people say? Well, I'm 40, so, what do they say?
Yeah, well, one they say, I just don't have time for this. Well, we have a solution for that. You don't have to work out as long and hard as you think. And then, others say, well, you're fighting a losing battle. Well, I mean, you could say that with any aspect of life, right? We're all going to die someday. But my thing is, when, like, I hate to say it, but especially like women, that are kind of referencing their 20-year-old bodies in college life and their friends or their friends' kids, like, how I can't get back to that weight. I was like, first of all, you have denser bones now. It just happens with age. And then eventually goes back the other way. Our body just needs more water. It has survival mechanisms to hold on to more fat. You're going to be heavy no matter what. So the scale has got to go. Everything is about inches, how you feel, having that muscle to feel functionally well, that you can, walk upstairs and do anything you want. And there is a diminishing return as we age of being able to assimilate protein, how well our digestive tract works, but you don't give up. You still got to optimize it and just work smarter, not harder. And you can get real close. Like, I feel like I have my 29 to 31-year-old body, and I think I can hold that for another 20, 30 years. And I'm barely doing any effort because I've got my routines down packed. I enjoy life. And that's the biggest thing, is you got to find stuff that works for you. And, we'll talk about later, but, what I think of for diets and all that, but I never push anything on anyone. Mm-hmm. I just like being a detective. We got to find things that make you feel good for, diet wise, things that you like for exercise, and just keep you moving. And, my best thing that I tell clients is, after they've been with me for a while and they're still crying about, I don't have my 20-year-old body. And, before I talked about that, I was like, let's just look at you. You've been with me for a while and you feel great and, everything. Let's put you against your peers, all your friends the same age. How does that look? They're like, oh my God, I'm so much better. Like,
top 1%.
Moving, just, and some of my older clients, how much more quicker they are mentally and talking, and some of their counterparts are just barely, moving, talking so slowly. Like, that's huge. Not everything has to be about the six pack. And dude, I spent my whole 20s and 30s trying to keep and hold that six pack. And when it comes down to it, you see these bodybuilders who, look effortlessly holding them, but what they're taking and what they're using for dehydration and all these, compounds and
Yeah, they're
chemicals
not
that they do,
representative of the
it's
population.
not representative. And they only do it for that one Photoshop. What do you think
Oh,
they
yeah.
look like the rest of the year? I see them. They're in my gym.
It's true.
They puff up just like me.
And where are
So,
you? And where are you seeing this? The algorithm, right? You're seeing this in
yeah.
the algorithm. So, oh man, the idea of looking at your peers is really powerful because a few things come to mind, Brad. One is that it doesn't take much to get you there. Like, and you've seen this. You can take someone who's been sedentary, and within, weeks even, there are things that can start to, relative to their peers, seem like outliers. Like, I've seen people who, they're starting to get that hunched over posture, even in their late 30s and 40s. They work on the desk all day, and then they start lifting weights, and 2 weeks later, you see them standing up like this, right? Older folks in their 60s, 70s who have trouble getting off a couch, just a little bit of squatting, a week later, they're getting off the couch. Like, that stuff is life changing. And you talked about like the bigger and denser bones. I think that's all funny, right? Because you're right. Women would just like see how much more powerful and muscular they are compared to their peers from a little bit of this. I love that approach. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And you mentioned like protein, MPS declines, hormones decline. Yeah, all that is a fact. So what are you going to do about it? You just control what you can. Okay, so I actually have a few questions from our members of the Wits and Weights community for you. I'll sprinkle these in. The first one is really about training and programming. So I think it's a good segue into that. If we're talking over 40 and your goal is body recomp, body composition, which I'm sure most of your clients are looking for that, hypertrophy, physique, that kind of stuff. What's your general principle for training and programming? Not knowing the individual who we're talking about here, just general, what are your principles?
Yeah, it's still very similar to how I preached in my 20s and 30s. Everything is about raising your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, building more lean muscle tissue. One, you're burning calories during the workout. Two, you're burning calories while, the aftermath of recovery and the protein synthesis that's happening and the thermogenics, that's burning more calories. And then having a higher BMR because now you have, 3-5 pounds more muscle. You're burning more calories at rest, even when you're sleeping, than you were before. So that's always been my theory, my whole 15-year career. But now it's just, what changes after 40? Well, we're still going for that. But, like I mentioned before, everything's got to be quality, not quantity. So first thing is we really got to start cleaning up the diet. And if one thing is it's really hard is, some people can do it, but I mean, I can't, almost all my clients can't do it, is get enough protein in the day. Okay, so we tried first real food, but now we got to use protein shakes. Well, I've had bouts of problems with cheaper whey protein concentrate because it was always the cheapest stuff. And later in life, actually found out I had a severe allergic reaction that was building up to that sent me to the hospital twice, anaphylactic shock. And now I know I have a milk protein allergy that's been building up. And now that I look back in time, I had noticed almost every single time I had that shake, I was getting a little itch or something wrong with my lip. And those are all the telltale signs that your body's changing and not liking something. I'm allergic to a whole slew of other things, by the way, but we don't probably have the time to talk about that stuff. So one is just like, we got to start getting quality stuff that works with your gut. There's all this science and stuff coming about your gut biome and who knows which way to go, right? But easiest thing to do is start journaling how you feel. Like after you eat, after you drink anything, I mean, you should never have that bloating feeling, seeing your liver bloat out. I found out I was allergic to red wine, gluten, obviously the milk, broccoli. Like, where did that come from? I almost had a bout of that last year, just a good amount of broccoli, and just had not like a severe allergic reaction, but enough to cause enough inflammation, enough discomfort, IBS slightly. And I've noticed that anytime your body's inflamed, anytime your body's stressed, either pain or mental, your cortisol levels raise, your gut's not working properly. And so everything you put in your body is just a waste. It's not going to process it correctly. You're not going to get those nutrients until your body is calmed down. And so the best results I've ever gotten is journaling and making sure that everything that I put in my body, my stress, everything is just top notch. My sleep's top notch. And then you start seeing the needle just start going like crazy. You're
Yeah.
getting all the results you want. So it's not just alcohol anymore. That was a big thing in our 20s and 30s. Like, well, you know what you're getting yourself into if you're drinking on the weekend, that pretty much everything's turning to fat. Well, all these other systems are doing the same thing too. So you have to watch everything now.
Yeah. First of all, I feel bad for you, man. Like all those allergens, because like it's hard for me to relate to some people because my body, for whatever reason, is like a tank with anything. I could just put any garbage into it and it's fine, which is amazing. Other than, you're right, some protein powders you got to watch out. It has certain negative side effects. Depends, but I think that's important, right? Because as we get older, these tolerances start to show up, or you may develop an allergen. What I found too, Brad, is people have been living in this state of fog for years, not realizing it until they eliminate it from their diet, right? And then all of a sudden, oh, there's the clarity I was missing. Even alcohol does that to some people. But you talked about stress and cortisol and gut kind of malfunctioning, and therefore kind of the nutrient partitioning isn't optimal, which is, it's one of these hidden things that people need to be aware of. The journaling is a great tool. So when you talk about journaling, I assume there's many ways people can do this. Is there a particular way you really like and find that people stick with and find useful when it comes to journaling?
I don't really have like an app to use. I'm real big in just keeping paper. I love
Notebook.
paper, doing my to-do list and then little journals like that. But other clients, they use like Microsoft Notes or just text it to themselves. But just something to have it, and not only for watching those items. Another one is, we talked about building your routines. When you finally feel like, what's the best diet? What are you supposed to eat on there? What type of movement you're doing each day, because you should do something, and you need reminders. So, I have this down, and probably in midday or late afternoon, I always see what my to-do list is. Next page is, all these routines. I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to take some fermented food products, because that helps with your gut biome, allegedly, and it does feel good to me. But just things like that, or your protein powder, you forgot to take your second shake if that's something that was important to you.
There you go.
So it's hard once you start building these to remember day in, day out. And you let 3 months, 6 months go by, and then you're like, why is nothing working? And then you go back through this stuff. You're like, I forgot like 6 of the things I was doing.
Yeah.
So that's just how our brain works. Some people probably have photographic memories, but
no. Yeah. I hear what you're saying, right? Because like I used to take 2 Brazil nuts every day for selenium. Yeah. And I remember that dropped off at some point, and I used to have a reminder on my phone, and I don't anymore. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should have that back in. Little things like that.
I do nutritional yeast and eggs for the same thing, but I'll forget the nutritional yeast for like a year.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got to write this stuff down. I mean, whether it's a notebook, an app, reminder, I have probably 20 reminders a day for all little things, like take my vitamins, or do this, do that. So yeah, it's human, being human. Okay. So inflammation and stress, you mentioned. Physical and emotional, of course, I'm sure, when we talk about stress, which increases with age. And part of it is the decades we spent not taking care of our body, like you said, or life becomes stressful with obligations with family, financial obligations, and so on. So, and I'm even putting you to sleep here, as we have this podcast, because we're probably got some stress. I'm just kidding, man. For those that watch in the video, he just yawned. So I was joking.
Oh, no, I was coughing. I muted so I could cough.
That's good. Oh, I thought it was a yawn. That's so funny. And I only say that, Brad, because I yawn all the time, and I feel like I'm offending people every time.
Oh, I clench my teeth, which is why I have some other issues with teeth all the time.
It's all good. So the question is, how do we take care of the inflammation and the stress? Like, where do those come from? And are there some practical things that people can kind of easily do? And then maybe more advanced strategies if you have those.
Yeah. So for inflammation, as far as like, we already went through that, what you're putting in your body. Okay. You've written all that down. You're feeling great. Your body's never really bloating up. You're working on your mental stress, what's going on with work, your family. I mean, that could take some time too, but I'm telling you, until you take care of that, my job as a personal trainer, and your job, trying to go through this journey, it's not going to happen, or it's going to have marginal results. And one of my favorite stories on that is one of my clients, a female at the time, she was, I think, 32. She had been coming for about a year, and she wanted to go the distance, like almost, bikini prep. If she wanted to, I'd have to refer to someone else that did that kind of stuff. We got great results. Just couldn't get that last, 5 to 10 pounds off. I mean, maybe 8 pounds max. It didn't matter how much better on nutrition. We gave her more movement, homework to do's, and progressive overload like crazy. Like we mapped it all out. And throughout that whole time, I was noticing that, she'd always talked about work and how she just hated her coworkers, her boss, and she had jumped from job to job. She's just, I'm that type of person too. I couldn't work for corporate anymore and deal with that stuff. But just the stress, I didn't know how bad it was. And I was friends with her husband as well. And he told me how bad it was. I'm like, God, you need to take care of this. And eventually she got her wish. Her husband got like a higher paying job, was able to give her her dream of going out consulting, LLC, and doing it on her own. And I don't think it was maybe 8 days, 9 days. She lost like 8 pounds, like all the pounds that we were trying to get off. And all of a sudden they came off, and we had kind of given up on some of this extra work too. So she reverted back to the lesser time, maybe 3-4 days a week. And she lost all that weight out of nowhere. That was my first time I've seen the effects of cortisol and how that can just sit there and work against you. And, putting 7 days a week on it, 2 workouts a day isn't gonna do anything until you solve that problem.
Hey, this is Philip, and I hope you're enjoying this guest interview on Wits and Weights. If you're finding it valuable, you can get a bonus conversation we recorded if you're on our email list. Just go to witsandweights.com/bonus or click the link in the show notes. Insiders on our email list will get a link to the bonus conversation where my guest will give you the exact steps to take related to one of the topics in today's episode. Again, these conversations are only available if you're on our free email list. To get the bonus exclusive content with today's guest, just go to witsandweights.com/bonus or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
So that was more on that side. And then for stress, as far as pain, I went through that chronic pain for sciatica. I don't know how bad yours was, Philip, but mine, I got to level 10 and then had to start counting by tens. I got to like level 70 pain. Like I would have rather put my hand on a frying pan for 10 seconds if you would have taken my back pain away. And recovering from all that, still having issues. And I met someone that helped me with a breathing process called diaphragmatic breathing, where basically just, people call it like belly breathing too, but learning how your nervous system, if you can calm that down, it's not just your cortisol levels, but it's just your nervous system as well, calming that down. And within 3 days of doing this style of breathing, like 70% of my pain gone. So it's just the power of, using these systems properly, optimizing them. You got to know about them, first of all. Like I've been doing this for a while, interviewing tons of guests. I'm sure you have as well. And you just keep learning and finding out new tricks in the trade. I never thought I knew everything about personal training, but I thought it was really good. And until you meet, people that know more. So
it's true. Yeah. When they're specialized in this. I mean, stress is one of those. It's funny because I'm putting together a podcast episode just on stress for the new year because of that. I think this episode might come out after that. But anyway, it's like a hidden, like you said, it's this hidden insidious thing that's working against you. And it's probably the one pillar of all the nutrition and training pillars that's like most nebulous.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like sleep, you get sleep. It's like hours and do your sleep hygiene, right? Training, nutrition, all that's pretty straightforward. With stress, it's like, okay, what do I do? Like you can't necessarily eliminate sources of stress in your life, although that is one way to do it. But it's also how do you cope with it? So like these breathing exercises and things like that are great. I wish there was a kind of a prioritized or kind of simple approach for most people on what to do first. But I don't think it works that way because in reality, everyone's going to glom onto something different, right?
Yeah.
Like if you told me to meditate, I'm going to say, go pound sand. I tried it. It's not my thing, but if you said go for a walk and okay, I got it. I can do that, so we got to meet people where they're at.
Exactly. And, for me, I found after I learned this breathing, how boring it is just to sit there, and I want to meditate. I knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone. We'll talk about, I referenced counting your micro minerals, not just your macro minerals. And we can talk about that. But vitamin D was a huge deficit for me, and taking care of that was a huge one. So I married those 2 together. So I do my belly breathing while I'm sitting out there getting some sun so I can get some vitamin D. So bam, I enjoy it. I love it. I'm not really meditating. I'm almost like kind of falling asleep, but I'm getting benefit from both. So it's just finding these systems and routines that are working for you.
Yeah, the habit stacking, that's always really good. Okay, so mental health is another thing I wanted to ask about, sort of tied to that, because at least the more I learn and talk to experts, I'm sure you have as well, we see how linked physical health is with mental health, to the extent that I've seen people who suffer from anxiety and depression for their whole life, and they just introduce some sort of fitness routine and it starts to improve their mental physical health. What was your experience with that, especially as we get older? And again, the stress probably is tied into that. A lot of women I notice have issues with like anxiety and depression. So what are your thoughts on that?
I've seen different things from all walks of life and people on working on that, and finding it in different things. Some people find it in supplements. Some people find it through nutrition. I'm one of those people, and we can talk about that. Some were just getting more sunlight. Ton of them were, finally moving and getting the endorphins and all those hormones from working out. And, some people didn't like circuit training and weight training, and that's what I offered. So, okay, well, go ride a bike or go do this or go do it outside, something. But for most people, it's just know that you have an issue. Know that, maybe there's something out there for some people that there's just no hope. You never want to say that, work with your health and wellness professionals on that maybe you need more crazy drugs or whatever, but just don't give up. That's the biggest thing. So, being a personal trainer, I'm sure you're the same way. We get to know clients. We kind of almost become a therapist at some point. We don't want to give too much direct advice, but one I always give is like, we know this is an issue. This is probably some of the reasons we're not getting the results we want. You gotta start searching for answers for this. And, I've got some suggestions. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor, but you've heard these things. Just start looking for it. And just write in your journal. Okay, I tried this, I tried that. I tried a different type of workout. I went and got some sun, and don't give up. And one of the things that I had issues with from pretty much sixth grade all the way to my first year in college was pretty mild to semi-severe depression. I don't know about anxiety, but I've suffered through depression. And people who have depression will never let anyone in the whole world know that they have it. And I was one of those people. Until finally I was like, I just can't do this anymore. You start looking and not really looking for help. Some people need that, but I just, never wanted to divulge that to anybody. I just went down rabbit holes and went on YouTube and, listened to experts on podcasts and started trying out different stuff. And lo and behold, I find peace with changing my nutrition up and going more on a keto low carb diet. And, I never preach that to anybody because there's no diet that's for everybody. It's, what works for you. And then we try that with different clients and find what works. But for me, ever since I did that, within less than a week, all my depression, and other issues gone. And it's been like that for, I think, 6 years now. Not once has it ever reverted back.
That's
so,
awesome.
That just tells you that doesn't mean my story is going to be the exact same for someone else, but just don't give up. You got to try different stuff. Never stop.
That's the principle I think that people want to grasp onto is looking for answers and taking control of your health. In my community, we talk a lot recently about gaslighting, especially for women in healthcare. And again, I want to have some women on my show to talk about that. But it really applies to everyone in that no one else is going to give you that answer. And even if you have a coach like us, even if you have a doctor, they may not be the person who has the answer. At the end of the day, you have to take control. And I like how you've tied it back to the journal and really understanding the correlations and the data between this stuff, because I've seen very simple things like taking ashwagandha, right? Like I know there's a lot of, all of a sudden, somebody was a woman who was in a terrible mood for 2 years and felt like it was hormonal. And it could be hormonal, but started taking a little bit of ashwagandha and it all went away. It's like just from that. Wow, something was deficient and it somehow helped regulate, right? And it's hard to figure out what it is, so don't assume other people are going to know or be able to help.
And take everything with a grain of salt, and find the people that are kind of vibing with you that have helped you. But I've seen doctors, research scientists, all on both sides, all attacking each other. That my way's the best way. Their ways. It's like endless. You can go on a social media rabbit hole, like looking at this stuff, and then all the trolls that are commenting, attacking each other.
Oh yeah.
But mine is just like, okay, I understand that side. That's what they're worried about, and my side that I kind of believe in. Okay, maybe I should, not go overboard. So in life, my thing is, find things that work for you, and just do stuff in moderation. Like if you're worried about, I just recently started getting into cold plunging, and I saw some renowned doctor on TikTok that was talking about how the Medical Heart Association doesn't recommend it. And Why would you go against them? Yeah, I just had a doctor, medical doctor on my podcast 3 weeks ago that basically was just trash talking the Medical Heart Association and how he has friends on the board and how they were talking about how they just discovered that they've just totally effed cholesterol and everything about it, but they can't let the world know about it. So it's like, this is what's happening behind closed doors. So, I mean, we can only do the best we can do. I bet you in like 100, 500 years from now, we're doing everything wrong. But, for now, we just got to work with what's working.
But you talked about being a detective early on in this podcast, and the N equals 1, like experiment on yourself is what it comes down to. When you talk about trying keto or going to keto to help, when I hear people going carnivore help, I'm like, there's some truth there. So what is the truth? We need to uncover that. And for an individual, that could be, you just changed something that was detrimental for you. You've gotten it out of the way by going to XYZ, whatever it is. It's keto. Now, maybe it's not the same thing that's going to help somebody else go to their thing, but try it. That's cool. Try it out. Like, I've had clients who did carnivore. A bunch of things got resolved, right? Like gut issues and other stuff got resolved. But then we got them out back to a more balanced diet, and they were still okay because we identified, okay, it was a couple things that were in there that were toxic to you. You know what I mean? So that's, I think, a reasonable approach to take here, not just assume this is the answer.
Exactly. And even for myself, like I've even modified back down the other way from hardcore keto to basically just a low carb diet. And I'm able to sustain everything, all the benefits that I had before. And it just works with my lifestyle better.
Yeah, so all your intolerances, I could see how it would be like, you got to be careful of like what's is causing the issue.
Exactly. So I think no matter what diet anyone's on or regimen or anything, I think everyone across the board, is that movement is good. Drink clean water, cleaner water if you can, mineralized water if you can. Non-processed foods. Almost everyone's on the same page on that. But I think once we get past that platform, which direction you should take, that's where all the fighting's happening. So you just kind of got to find it through your own journey.
Yeah, and just again to allude for the listeners, we're going to have a little conversation that's a bonus episode to the email list about one of these controversial topics. So maybe it's intermittent fasting. We'll see. Okay, so one more thing about nutrition is the micros, right? Not just tracking calories and macros, but also micros, potassium, calcium, magnesium, so on. What are your thoughts on that? What should people track? What's important for those over 40? What's your approach there?
Yeah, so I came across more of that. Another guest that came on my show was just nerded out on all these microminerals and all the benefits. And I knew some. I didn't really come from an education on that, but I get my blood work done. My doctor tells me I need to increase my calcium, increase my vitamin D, all that kind of stuff. But, to really optimize it. And so you got to be careful there because you never know what conditions people have. And always got to throw out there, do this with your doctor. That's what I did. I found a doctor that vibes with me, that's more kind of a little bit on the holistic side and, have a frame of reference to bounce stuff off of. And if he okays it, then I do some of the stuff I want to do. But basically this guest that was on my show just said, start counting your microminerals. And, everyone believes a different RDA or where it should be. I just said, let's play it safe. Let's just Google RDAs, what's out there in the medical association. And he said, you'll be surprised that you'll be very deficient in some of these minerals. Number one being potassium. I'm like, okay, let's check it out. I was deficient in calcium, deficient in magnesium, severely deficient in potassium, just like he said, high in sodium, even though I was sitting there trying my best to keep that down. And the thing was, you didn't really need to watch sodium too much. If you had potassium high enough to match that sodium, your body works great. And he was right on that. But the other one was vitamin D, like I mentioned before. I'm a cave dweller. I live in gyms. I don't go out ever in the sun, hardly ever. And now that I do more podcasting, it's even worse. So, I had to get a routine in with going outside, getting some sun, and then supplement the rest.
Right.
And so,
but how did you test all this? Was it like with hair, with
just blood
saliva,
work?
blood work?
Yeah,
okay.
Blood work. Yeah, it'll show your vitamin D, your calcium, magnesium, potassium. All the other ones they don't really test for, but I basically made a graph. Took all the RDAs of all the vitamins, all the minerals, and then I discovered a cool website. When I'm trying to sit here and use trackers to find all this stuff, and I'd see all these popular trackers. I can't even remember the most popular one, but it was more a frame for users to update stuff, and they would totally just skip putting all the macros in. They would only do the macros.
Right.
So you didn't know how much potassium, calcium, phosphorus was in any of this food. So a cool website that I found was eatthismuch.com. And basically, you could take every single raw food on this planet, and it would tell you all the macros and micros for being in the raw form or cooked, because it does change and it does matter. So I started doing that and just nerded out and made a whole graph on it. And that's how I discovered, oh my God, my potassium's next to nothing. And had some other issues too. And sure enough, I started working on that, food first and then supplement if you need to.
So more bananas?
Yeah. Well, and on my keto world, I can't have stuff like that. So I had to use more avocados and a little bit of coconut water and stuff like that, and green veggies. So after I started doing that, all of a sudden I just noticed a lot of bloat. You know, I've always teetered around single digit body fat, but my goal is I want to be able to get back to it, but yet still having a social life, right? And that's been the struggle being over 40. Well, I noticed about 3 pounds of water weight kicked off just by increasing my potassium right there, because that's what potassium and sodium do. Just do a dance with each other. So sodium will hold more water in your cells or in your skin. Potassium will pull it intracellularly into your cells, and any excess it'll expel out. So already benefits from that. I felt better in the gym because potassium plays a big role in your electrical components of your muscles, and just felt amazing. Nice. So that was another thing I really started pushing on clients. You know, be careful. I couldn't really write anything for them. I don't have the degrees to do that, but just put it on their radar. So, you know, that's all I do is just start, like you said, playing the detective and trying to find little deficiencies or things I can get them to start looking at.
Yeah, I think that's great, especially if you have a diet that is restricting something, right? Like whether it is a keto or vegan, for sure. Vegans are probably the most at risk of certain deficiencies that may be found mostly in animal products. I mean, you could pretty much get everything from plants too. I get it, but it's harder. It's a lot harder. So tracking these in some way, I like that eatthismuch.com. The app that we use and my clients use, MacroFactor, also can track your macros.
Macros, okay.
Be aware of it, because some, like you said, it's like stress. It could be hidden in there, some deficiency going on, and that's behind a lot of this. Like poor sleep, maybe it's magnesium. You just don't know.
There you go. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. All right, I wanna reserve some time. I think one or two more questions here. One was from the community. What about very much older individuals, like pushing their 60s and 70s, in terms of muscle gain? Like what can they expect if, let's say, they're just getting into it, now they're training, they're using progressive overload? You know, anything different there? Is it really the same principles?
Same principles, but just know that as you're getting older, the one thing is injuries. That our recovery time getting older is just so much setbacks. It can't happen. I mean, right now I'm 43 and it can't happen. Imagine, you know, my mom is going through osteoporosis. I think she's turning 70 today, actually. And she's going through that. She literally just broke her hand doing some landscaping, a very soft fall. And she put her hand out, broke both her bones in her forearm. Like unbelievable. So that's kind of a thing that we're going to be working on. And she's always been standoffish with working out and strength training, but God, it's so great for you're building up bones and all that.
Yeah.
And also calcium playing a big part. But you gotta worry about these things. And, you know, that's why I kind of revert back to my doing more time under tension. You can cut half the weight down. You can still progressive overload because, you know, cut the weight down as long as you can get the 4 to 6 seconds doing everything slow, like I've been talking about, and you can go up and wait. There's nothing saying you can't do that. And you might still be able to get to the weights that you were doing before. You know, there's all these theories of, you know, that eccentric contraction or doing negatives gets you that ability to recruit more muscle fibers to get you stronger for your other lifts. But I would still, you know, slow down and watch as you age for those types of injuries. And one of the cool things that I've seen in my life for individuals who have like osteoporosis and that kind of stuff is, remember power plates when those were big?
Yep.
So now there's all these different companies that have, like, you know, come in the market, they've cut the price down, but, you know, the whole theory behind the power plate is, you know, it's using G force by, you know, moving up and down, left and right, back and forward to a certain frequency. And it's been shown that, you know, it's like putting you on Mars or a different planet with just a little bit more gravity. And you can do simple body weight movements with no weights and get just as great as results if you were using 20, 30 pound weights. And I've seen that. And one of my clients bought a machine for his wife, and she started reversing her her score, whatever the score was for osteoporosis,
Sure.
going the other way. So that's what I'm trying to work on with my mom now, because she's not a huge fitness buff. She doesn't want to go to the
That's
gym.
great, right?
I'll train her for free.
Or this. Yeah, for sure.
But if I can get her on there for 10 minutes a day and literally just hold a squat, that's it. You don't have to do anything else. There's benefit in that. So that's going back to that theory of don't give up. Find something that's going to work for that client.
Love it. No, but the idea of that it takes longer to recover is definitely important, especially if you're getting into it. You still have that level of frailty or fragility. I mean, I definitely seen dudes in their 70s who've been training for 10 years and they're stronger than me, and they're fine probably, but the recovery is still slower for other reasons. Okay, last thing. Is there a question you wish I had asked? I know maybe there's some topics we intended to get to and didn't, but is there some burning question you wish I had asked? And then what is your answer?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, we're gonna kind of talk about maybe fasting in the next little segment or whatever, because I'm real big on that. Longevity things. So, I think I've really gotten into that in the last year and a half, talking to all these experts and just seeing cold plunging, doing more sauna type red light therapy. Everything's about stressors. And in my life, I understand that. That's the whole business of working out and stressing the body to repair itself. And we knew as personal trainers, like, it's not just how much weight you lift, it's, volume too. And it's not just about destroying muscle fibers so they repair themselves. It's about getting the stimulus to trick your hormones into fixing this problem of being under this stress. So now I'm starting to see that, longevity is a big thing too. And bodybuilding looks great, but at that high elite level, there's nothing longevity about smashing 300 grams of protein every day, destroying your body like that, when all the science for longevity says we should probably not be working, all this stuff. So
right, low protein, don't work out, calorie restriction, all that.
Same thing. It comes back to where do you fit in all this? And for me in my podcast, I want to be that middle ground, the liaison between all those research scientists that are putting out all these things on longevity and all their research on worms and mice, and these are the longevity supplements you should be taking, or cold plunging and all that, but also seeing how they look and move. No, I want to have a little bit more muscle mass and feel like a man, and still have my world of personal training. So I kind of want to be the middle ground and doing a little bit of both. So,
I also cannot avoid making that declaration that these guys they look like they're about to just break in half and fall over of some disease.
Yeah.
And you're telling me to live if I have to live long like that, forget about it.
Dude, one of the funny things
with a bang.
Yeah. So I was talking to my brother about this, and he was like, one of my goals is to make it to 120. I want to be a guy 120 still with some decent size and all that. And he's like, who's got the record? And it's like, some guy in Asia, or I think it was a Chilean mountain man, made it to like 133. That's just what's recorded. Who knows what happened in the past and all that. And then I pulled up a picture of him, showed my brother, and he's like, shoot me if I ever. Yeah. So that's the other problem, is I want to look good and be functionally fit, not just my organs inside this body that's destroyed by the sun and the wilderness.
All right. So on that positive note, no, I'm just kidding. On that note, no, this has been awesome, man. This is a really good conversation, and I want listeners to know where to find you. Obviously, there's the podcast, Over 40 Fitness Hacks Podcast, that they can subscribe to or follow right now because they're listening to this show. Where else can they find you?
Yeah, so that podcast, and then basically just my website, over40fitnesshacks.com, and it's 40, not spelled out 40. And pretty much those are my main two. I don't do a whole lot of social media, even though I am on Twitter. The best is just to hit my website, and I have a contact form on there, and just shoot me an email.
That's one way to keep stress down. Stay off social media.
That's the other.
Okay, so I'll definitely put those in the show notes, of course, so listeners can find you. Brad, this has been a really fantastic conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with me and coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Philip. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wits and Weights. If you found value in today's episode and know someone else who's looking to level up their wits or weights, please take a moment to share this episode with them. And make sure to hit the follow button in your podcast platform right now to catch the next episode. Until then, stay strong. Hey, before you go, I want to let you know about a free resource I have. They are free guides on everything from fat loss to eating out to building muscle to managing hunger to figuring out the best macros for you, and more being added all the time. You want to get the most out of these podcasts and your time to look and feel your best, and these free guides will give you a quick and easy way to know what to do. If you want to get your hands on these completely free guides, you can head over to witsandweights.com/free. That's witsandweights.com/free to get your free guides and level up your results today.